Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, and their organizations prepare for change and transformation. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP of Business Engagement and Growth at AICPA SEMA, the largest global body of professional certified accountants in the world. We're going to be talking today about making your finance team irresistible by one of the preeminent talent thought leaders in the world and author of the new bestseller, Irresistible, The 7 Secrets of the World's Most Enduring Employee-Focused Organizations. Joining me is Josh Bersin. Josh is a global research analyst, public speaker, advisor on the topics of corporate human resources, talent management, recruiting, leadership, technology, and the intersection between work and life. In 2001, Josh founded Bersin and Associates, known as the leading research and advisory company in corporate HR. In 2012, Bersin was acquired by Deloitte and became Bersin by Deloitte. In mid-2018, Josh retired from Deloitte and started the Josh Bersin Academy, the world's home for HR. Josh and his team of experts offer research advisory services, the Global HR Capability Project, and the Josh Bersin Academy, the only end-to-end professional development platform dedicated to HR leaders and their teams. Josh, say hello to everybody.
Hello, Tom. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here.
It's exciting to reconnect with you because we worked with you way back when you were just Bersin and a little bit when you were Bersin by Deloitte, but it's good to reconnect, and thank you for making time to do this with us. So sure. I want to start with this future finance initiative. So we've been working on this and the accelerated shift in accounting and finance driven by digital transformation, where talent is by far the number one issue and seems to be growing every day. What would you recommend for CFOs to make their teams and organizations irresistible to grow, change, flex, and adapt, all with a focus on purpose, mission, and values?
Well, I mean, there's a lot there, but I would say there's really 3 things. The first, of course, is the finance function, and all of the things that financial professionals do is exploding in really in importance and in breadth. And so, the older way of thinking about a business function like finance or HR or accounting or whatever it may be was very strict. And we had these job titles and these job descriptions, and we knew what they were. And now all of that is getting morphed as these roles keep changing. And so we need to, number one, is look at hiring people for learning agility, for technical and digital skills, as well as human skills, as we call power skills, as well as professional skills. And the third is to sort of model the organization, the finance organization, as if it was a consulting organization and can adapt to different needs as they come in. And I know that's a lot to think about, but all of those things are happening across every domain of business that we talk to and every company we talk to. So those are some of the very high level issues.
So it's interesting because when we polled them and found out like what their top issues were, you could see the expanding role, right? They were talking about, the ESG and DEI and new ways of thinking about value, right? Intangibles, all that started to, and what they said is, in addition to the talent and the lack of skills in their teams, they said it's not like any one of these issues is really big. It's that they're all happening at the same time and often demand the focus of the CFO and their finance team in parallel and simultaneously. So it is kind of a crazy.
The reason, and let me just sort of back up. And the reason for this is something else we've seen in the research that we've done across talent in general, is that virtually every company is transforming into some adjacent industry or business model or technology. And so if you guys in finance aren't there to help the company make that transformation and understand how to do it profitably, and to not just sort of overhire and overspend on various initiatives, they're not going to know how to do it. So you're playing a much more advisory and consulting role than ever in understanding these transformations.
Yeah, and in fact, the words they are using is, kind of a chief value partner or a chief future officer, even because of that new role of foresight versus hindsight. So you're spot on, and that does make a whole lot of sense. Now, so let's go to the shift from performance management to performance enablement. I saw a post you did about that and said this is one of the big shifts. So what do you mean by that idea?
Well, performance management from an HR standpoint means performance appraisal and annual reviews. I mean, from financial management, it means a little bit different, but there's this old idea that human beings are replaceable, and that what we'll do every year is we'll get rid of the bottom 10%, maybe the bottom 20% in some companies, and we'll just keep, upgrading, top grading, they used to call it. And, GE was famous for this. Even Microsoft used to run this way. And what we're now finding is there's two problems with that. Number one, there aren't enough people to go around. So if you get rid of those 10 or 20%, you're not going to be able to replace them very easily. Right. Number two, human beings are the most adaptable part of your company. In fact, the way I like to put it is that the human capital is the only capital you really have that's constantly appreciating in value. Because the more people learn, I know all you guys think human capital is an expense, but on the other hand, the more people learn and understand the business and understand the industry and understand the customers, the more valuable they become. So, one of the paradigm shifts in performance management is, yes, people have problems. Yes, people are in the wrong jobs. Yes, they sometimes underperform, and sometimes they need to be moved into a new role. But if you're not helping them perform better, you're not actually improving the performance of the company. All you're doing is churning, and probably creating a lot of politics on who's going to be rated high and who's not. So this has been going on as long as I've been in HR, and this is a big shift. I'll make one more, sort of observation. We've done multiple studies of this. And in the early 2000s, when I was first doing research, about 75 to 80% of the companies we surveyed said that the reason they were doing performance management was what we called competitive evaluation. Let's, pit this person against this person and see which one makes more money and which one keeps the job and which one doesn't. Today, it's 80% on growth and development, because we don't have enough people. We're all learning. Everybody has to adapt to this new world and develop new skills. And if we're not helping people do that, it doesn't matter if we're evaluating people. It's not going to help.
I love that. And you made a good point, though, about our accounting. Like, we account for human capital cost as expense. There's a whole school of thought that it's one of those intangible values. There's a whole new discipline coming along with ESG that begins to rebalance that and refocus that, Josh, to your point. So it begins to be looked at as a capital that's led and managed and cherished, as opposed to an expense that we're just writing off.
I mean, listen, you guys are the finance professionals, but if there's a way to think about human capital as an appreciating asset, you wouldn't hire so fast, you wouldn't lay off so fast, you'd spend more money on development. A lot of things would be done differently.
You're exactly right. And I'm hoping we can play a role as the association and maybe change that paradigm a bit.
Yeah.
Right? It would be an amazing place to go. So I love that, from performance management to performance enablement, and the notion of thinking about your human capital as an asset that's appreciating as opposed to that expense. The golden stuff there for sure, Josh. And all right, now I'm going to shift to this idea that culture. So in your book, you make a great point that culture, not rules, is a major piece, right? And in our group, maintaining culture in a hybrid work environment was one of their top 3 or 4 issues consistently now. As finance pros are all, I mean, even every company struggling with it, but the finance pros are saying, how do we look at this differently so that we can think about this because we think it's a pretty much permanent shift for at least the near term?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think there's 2 aspects to culture relative to finance, because you guys are actually in a function very similar to the people that I spend more time with as in HR. It's not that different, actually.
Right.
There's the culture of the company and the business as a whole. And do I feel that I'm affiliated with that? Do I relate to it? And do I feel like I'm included? Do I feel like I belong? Are my differences appreciated in the company in general? And that affects the employment brand for everybody in the finance function and everybody else. And then there's the culture of the finance function.
Mhm.
Are you guys the cost cutters? Are you the no people? Are you the yes people? Are you the consultants? Are you the evaluators? You guys have to decide from the CFO down how you want to be perceived inside of the company. And some of that will come from the CEO too. But I think the same thing's true of HR. Your HR friends over there on the other side, they have the same problem. Are they the police or are they the coaches? Are they the nice guys or are they going to hold you accountable? This is what happens in these support functions. And I would imagine that the kind of culture you want to have is that we in the finance group are here to make the rest of you even more successful than you are. And that's what we get excited about. And that's why we like working in this function and doing what we do. And that's the kind of thing that will attract those kinds of people into your finance organization. So that's why it's so important.
I mean, it's funny because you just captured perfectly the spirit of this future finance leadership group we've put together, which has CFOs from a lot of these major corporations. And they've been working with us pretty much every other month to help us redefine and reimagine what finance should look like in this new age coming out of the pandemic. So great. That's some great advice there. I love that about the culture notion. And I like the idea that they should be thinking more like consultants, which is what they're all saying, right? We have to be value partners to the business, not the police or the cops or the people that are running around giving them bad marks from that perspective. So good stuff. All right, now I want to move on to your power skills. I love that concept from you. We at our Business Learning Institute, which is a division of AICPA, we call them success skills, but I think I like your power skills even more. And you're saying we're becoming a power skills economy, and we see a little similarities to our T-shaped professional model we call boundary crossing competencies. Talk to us a little bit about your idea of power skills and what they mean from that perspective.
Sure. Well, let's see. I guess, right now there's this big discussion about skills everywhere in business, especially the HR guys are going nuts with this. We're going to write down all these skills, and we're going to, categorize you, and you're going to tell us what your skills are. But of course, that's always changing. Like right now, Chat GPT is the most important skill basically in business. And it's only a month old, right? So that wasn't in your resume a month ago.
Right.
And there'll be something else next month. So, so if you really look back at your career, and I think about my career, all the people I've met, all of those technical skills come and go, and you have to learn them. That is sort of the basics. Right. And you'll be very good at some of them and not as good at others. And some of them you're going to have to get help from other people on, and some of them you'll be the specialist. But the thing that endures beyond all of that, no matter how much AI and technology is created, is our ability to find added value on top of that. And that tends to be listening, communication, problem solving, time management, empathy. I mean, we learned this about the pandemic. I'll tell you the funniest story about power skills. In fall of 2019, before the pandemic, we were at UC Berkeley with a bunch of CHROs talking about leadership models. And we had some, very eminent psychologists speak about human happiness and what are the drivers of human happiness. And it's things like flexibility and empathy and caring and awe and, these kind of psychological terms. And I asked the CHROs at the time, how many of you use any of these words in your corporate leadership framework or your mission statement? And like, nothing, silent. Fast forward a year later, everybody's talking about all of this stuff because there's so much stress from the pandemic. And what I've realized is that basically every business problem is a people problem. Every project, every initiative, any new change has to do with people. And if you're not able to listen and understand and communicate and empathize and coach and develop and lead, you're just, you're a technician. And I don't think many of us want to be technicians for the rest of our careers. So these power skills are always important.
That's some good stuff. I knew this would be amazing. So you're just full of amazing nuggets that are supporting the things we're trying to do and really helping along here. All right. I got to at least address, because your skills point is exactly what's going on in this whole debate about college versus the Wall Street Journal article about, you don't need colleges anymore. I think that was an overreach, but it speaks to this idea of apprenticeship programs. And we're one of 3 or 4 professional apprenticeships that have been launched in the last couple of years, along with insurance, cybersecurity, and HR, by the way, SHRM, that are in that professional bucket. Because every time I say apprenticeship, people think I'm talking about a bricklayer. So, but speak to that idea of skills and anything you can about the importance of these apprenticeships as an alternative pathway into skills inside of major corporations.
No, I think that kind of program is fantastic, and I applaud you guys for doing it. Every professional domain that I've been in, and I've been, had a lot of different jobs, has many, many technical, complex skills and experiences required, and you gain them through experience. School will only take you so far. Even a course in a professional education course will only take you so far. It's only when you use it and apply it and see what didn't work that you really get sort of wise and masterful at it. So, anything that people can do to bring young people into the profession early. I mean, I think going to college is important for all sorts of reasons besides the technical education of it, learning to write and read and just appreciate, the world. But apprenticeship is probably more important than certification to some degree. I think some of these certifications are important for testing, but in the actual work, knowing how to do the job is based mostly on your personal experiences. And the faster you can get more experience, the more professional value you're going to create. So I applaud you for doing that. I'm not saying colleges are going away, by the way.
No, they're not. There's always an important role. And even with our apprenticeship, it's got a 2-year journey coming through a junior college and then starting to get certified, as well as a 4-year. But to your point, we're offering it to people that might not be able to afford the 4-year route. That's another big part of it. And the experience point, when the Department of Labor looked at our learning, they actually will issue a certificate as a finance business partner from the Department of Labor as part of all this. So that's exciting.
No, and the other thing, Tom, is, people are living longer. So they're moving in and out of different careers. So people could come in and take your apprenticeships mid-career and then suddenly have this new career ahead of them. So there's all sorts of reasons to do this.
Yeah. In fact, we're talking, one of our early adopters is a bank. And he was saying, I'm probably going to be laying off as technology comes in a lot of bank tellers in the future. I'd love to be able to reskill them through an apprenticeship because their knowledge of our business would be huge inside the company.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's exactly what you're talking about from that perspective. All right, I'm going to try to get to 2 more. The idea of agility. When we looked at this, it was like an agile report. And it showed finance and accounting. This won't surprise you. The least agile among all the other corporate departments, IT, sales, even HR. And I know you talk a lot in your book about agility and how that works. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, two things. First is flattening the organization helps. The more hierarchy, the less agile it becomes, because there's all sorts of people who sort of feel like it's their power and they don't want to let go of it and they won't let somebody move around. So that's one thing. But I think the second thing that creates agility, we just did a lot of research on organization design. And what we found is that what creates agility is not the organization structure, but the way people operate, the way they work together, the way they're willing to help each other, the way they're willing to take time to teach somebody else something. It's very cultural. And in the software industry, where they've broken all these software teams into small groups, if you read all the books about agile and software, it's all about culture. It's not really about the structure of these teams. It's creating smaller teams that are focused on the mission, that know what they're accountable for, that communicate regularly, that are willing to do things in an iterative way. One of the things about agile is you have to be willing to do things quickly and change them quickly too, and not wait for them to be perfect before you get them out. So those are things that probably feel a little bit weird in the finance function, but I'm sure there's analogies there this has been true in HR. I mean, most HR people never wanted to launch anything until it was perfect, and now they're finding out none of it's ever perfect. Right. So we might as well get it out there and then fix it as fast as we can. And I think you guys probably could use some of that too.
Yeah, we call it fail fast and learn, or first attempt in learning. But you gotta try. As long as you do the learning part and then tweak it, that's the big, as opposed to just let it go and figure out what happens later. All right, so we got to get to, you've mentioned it a couple of times already, And you've had a couple posts about Chat GPT. I've been playing around with it as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, talk about a little bit. Why is it more massive than we think? And why is it such a big deal?
Well, a lot of you in this profession are mathematicians, or, you have backgrounds in math. And so, what this basically software is a gigantic neural network that's taking words and numbers and computer code. It's tokenizing them into repeatable tokens, and it's finding the statistical relationships from them billions of times per second, and then replicating English language. It sounds bizarre, but that's basically what it is. And it's been trained from years and years of reading lots of information to put the right words together. Well, it turns out if you look at most of the things that happen in business, very high percentage of them have to do with this kind of reasoning. And so, questions like, what was our profitability last quarter versus the quarter before? Or, why is the margin higher here than it was here? What changed between here and here? It actually can find that. Yeah. So, and of course, it can also write an answer as to why what you just wrote in English could be clearer. I mean, it can do a lot of things to make our jobs better. I think the way Microsoft positions it is great. They call it a co-pilot. It doesn't take over your job, right, but it's sitting there to help you. And I think if you're intimidated by it, you're going to be left behind. And I go back to my early days when I worked at IBM in the 1980s. And I remember when the first PC came out and Microsoft Excel and Lotus 1-2-3 and VisiCalc, you guys remember that stuff? Oh, yeah. Everybody looked at it and were like, oh my God, all the finance professionals are going to go out of business, right? Well, that didn't happen. We all just learned how to use it. So it's the same situation. This is going to be a tool that we're all going to learn how to use. It's very early days. And it's going to make a lot of things easier. And I think we just have to look at it as a new capability that we're going to take advantage of to make our jobs, more productive and more extensive than they have been in the past. So, I mean, we don't know yet. It's pretty early days, but that's the way I see it.
I mean, I've been playing around with it. We've connected to a couple of like CFO types who are doing FP&A routines with it. It's amazing what they've been able to do. And I was back there in those days in the 1980s when the Excel and all came out. And I'll never forget, there was a Wall Street Journal article that said, this is the end of accounting.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, literally, that's what it was. Excel would just be the end of accounting. And everybody was like running around like the sky's falling. It's like, no, exact opposite happened. The demand went way up for everybody trying to figure out how to do it. Right. So,
well, and goes back to the very beginning of our conversation, is the job that we're in is to add insights and judgment to the financial decisions that are being made in the company. That's a human skill. That's not a machine skill.
That says it. That says it all. And I think so. The advice for everyone is they need to start playing around with it and try to get comfortable with it.
Yep. And there'll be courses on it. There'll be all sorts of things, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. And then now I guess Microsoft's already put 10 billion in it, I think is the number, and they're going to be building it into just about everything they do.
What they announced last week is this stuff's going to be built into Excel, built into Outlook, built into Word. So you're going to have it. I don't know when they're going to turn it on, but you're going to have it.
Yeah. So you better get used to it and start playing around with it, so you're not like scared to death about it. This was awesome. I think, thank you for your time so much here. I think tons of takeaways from this whole conversation, Josh. I mean, you definitely reaffirmed our future of finance and what our group's trying to do. Lots of good tips and nuggets here to help them solve some of those pressing pieces. So again, I want to thank you. Let me close up by saying, everybody, you can follow Josh Bersin on LinkedIn at Josh Bersin, Bersin. On Twitter, it's at Josh_Bersin. And buy his book. It's a great one. Irresistible, the 7 Secrets of the World's Most Enduring Employee-Focused Organizations. Did I miss anything there, Josh, for them to kind of connect or get a hold of you?
Oh, thank you.
This is awesome. So thank you for joining me. And to my audience, don't miss other Future Ready live sessions. I'll be back here on LinkedIn the first and third Tuesday of each month at noon Eastern. We'll see you then. And this was amazing, Josh. Thank you again for
spending
some time with me.